Hi, Phil here, Bus Old Man Phil. I'm standing at the back of the 4103, and I'll start with the fuel lines. I noticed on your video you had the fuel running from the fuel pump. It's really bright out here, and there we go. There's the fuel pump. You had it running up to the fuel rail. The output from the primary filter goes to the fuel pump, and I can't see my monitor, so I don't know how good this is. Into the fuel pump. Let me see, let me change hands here. Into the fuel pump, out of the fuel pump, into the secondary filter, and from the secondary filter into the fuel rail. The fuel exiting from the rail, you'll notice it's the lower. This is the fuel in, the upper. This is the fuel out, returns back to the tank. That's the first thing. You don't want anything that could occur in the fuel pump to get into the injector. So the final filter, whatever your configuration is, and I notice you're using one of the newer filters that contains both the primary and secondary filters in one unit, and that's fine. Remember that the fuel from the tank, by the way, use a check valve like this. This keeps the fuel from flowing back into the tank. This is the fuel from the tank through this check valve into the primary filter. In this old system, this is the original system, the primary filter. Again, it leaves the primary filter into the fuel pump, the discharge from the fuel pump into the secondary filter, and from the secondary filter into the fuel rail on the engine block. Okay, that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed was you were inquiring about this. This is an oil line from the engine. I think you can see that way down in there. I'm trying to find it myself. You see it way down in here? You see my finger point? This is the oil leaving the engine block under pressure, lubricating this pivot point on the governor. This is the droop adjustment, or the anti-loping adjustment for the engine after the idling is set. I mentioned last night, and I'll mention again, if you're using an air throttle system, the servo unit mounts somehow on the engine block or somehow on the governor top, and this is an air operated unit that will operate this throttle linkage. There's one air line up to the front to the pedal valve, and you can get the air supply up there from the suspension system. That'll work just fine. Not their suspension, this is springs. I'm getting my model. You can get the air source for your accelerator pedal from anything up front. And one line comes to a servo unit that's mounted here to operate the governor. Whatever you come up with there. Okay. Those are the two things that concern me. Third thing that concerned me was you were holding this can. This is a bypass filter. This was originally a laminated washable filter. This catches the big stuff. circulating through the engine. This will catch metal filings, rocks, stones, sand, any kind of junk that occurs from the operation of the engine is caught here. This filter, I noticed, was changed to whatever unit is on there now, and that's a final filter, if you want to call it that, or the secondary oil filter. So your system there is all right. You don't have this anymore. This whole unit has been changed, so you don't have that anymore. Okay, now I wanted to show you the water manifold. We talked about that. And I said the upper was the supply line to the bus cabin heater. That's incorrect. It's the lower line right here. That looks like 1.25 inches. I can't. Oh, here's the size right here. 1 1/4. Okay, so just to get the engine running on the garage floor there, just run a pipe from this down to the intake down below where the bottom of the radiator is. And I don't know if we can see that. I'll try and look. This is the system as I described it, and this is the pipe coming back from the bus heating system, and it comes back to this fitting under the radiator. You see where it's under the radiator there? This, by the way, is a drain plug. This is the fitting into the bottom of the radiator, and this is the suction side. This is where the water pump draws water from the bottom of the radiator and from the heating system back into the engine to be reheated, recirculated back through the radiator, and on and on and on. Now I'll show you that we do not have, there's not enough light. I need my light here for this. But I wanted to show you that the fan blade is about 3/4 inch from the radiator core. The shroud didn't get put back on this yet for reasons beyond me. But I noticed back inside, I'm going to stop this. I just remembered I have a portable light with me. Okay, where was I here? What was I talking about? Oh, the fan and the radiator. Okay, then I noticed half the shroud is here, so I don't know, I don't remember. Anyway, now the top of the water manifold, in here is the thermostat housing. Now I gotta put the light down. Nobody's here yet. It's about 10 a.m. and I'm expecting people here at 10:30. Okay, so in here is the thermostat housing. You already see this. This fitting is for the shutter stat. The air supply from the shutter stat comes from, here it is here. Here's the shutter stat air supply. This is where it is on this 4103, back towards the left. The cover, by the way, is off the terminal box. Everybody leaves the covers off for the wires to corrode. Anyway, so this is the air supply to the shutters through filters. There's an air filter in here, and this is the supply valve to the shutters. This is the output to the shutter stat, which is this fitting right here. Okay, from the shutter stat, an air line goes over to the shutter servo unit, that pneumatic plunger that you spent half of your life having it cleaned and repainted nicely. That was it. Okay, now the next thing I heard somebody talk about is where Oh, I know, Warren talked about it, where the oil pressure gauge is. Okay, again, going way back down inside here. Remember where I showed you? Back down inside here. See the oil line? See the copper line going up to the governor like I told you? You see the black hose line, which is also connected there. And that black hose line goes up to a manifold here, an oil manifold. Here's a pressure gauge. This unit is the oil light and buzzer. This unit is the sending unit for the oil pressure gauge, that unit there. This is the on-off switch for the low oil light and buzzer. This is the sending unit for the oil pressure gauge. Okay, next, on the top of the water manifold, this, where is it? Here it is. This is the on-off for the hot engine light, and this also sends a signal to the moto guard if you still have that. Okay, this is the sending unit for the temperature gauge. Okay, now air compressor. I saw on your workbench a reciprocating air compressor. This bus has the orbital compressor. Anyway, here is the water coolant line. Somebody had that in their hand. I think Warren picked it up, or one of you picked it up. I saw you with it in your hand. This is the water from the air compressor. Okay? Into the air compressor is the water line from the engine water manifold. Okay? The output from the air compressor, we don't need to get into that now. On this system, the air compressor unloader is here, the old-fashioned unloader. Since so much is being changed on your bus, I'm not going to address that issue because I find it unnecessary now to remove the generators. These generators are repairable, they work perfectly fine. People spend tens of thousands of dollars screwing around with a fancy alternator that's no less trouble than this DC generator. All right? What's next? I'm not really sure what's next here, so I'm going to take a break here. Okay, I didn't finish with the water. Okay, so back to the water manifold. You'll notice that this pipe is the water leaving the engine to the radiator and to the surge tank. Under normal operating conditions, the water in the surge tank, when the engine is cold, should be about 2 inches from the bottom. Water or coolant. I'm going to call it water, and I'm going to call it coolant, and I'll interchange, but they mean the same thing. Okay, you told me the oil bath air cleaners have been pulled out. All right, so we don't need to talk about that. With the turbo unit, I'm not sure, but I would inquire about whether or not the air input to the engine from these 5 vents on the left side of the bus and the 5 vents from the right side of the bus are enough. it might be interesting to know if you could cut into that space to get more air in. You should check with somebody on that. It's not going to do any good to have a blower and not have an inadequate air supply. Okay, when you can, find the cover for this terminal box. But before you put the cover on, go over all these connections. I think I've described that once, but I'm going to describe it more later. You're not at that point right now. You want to get the engine running on the garage floor, that's fine. So what you want to do with your 5-gallon can and your hoses is tap in here. The fuel in is the lower of the two in this configuration. If you still have it here under the junction box, if that bracket is still there where the fuel lines come from and go back to the tank, mark them, and then you can tap in here or anywhere with a 5-gallon can of diesel fuel to run the bus. This is the fuel in with this check valve. This is the fuel back to the tank, the fuel return. The upper one is the fuel return. All right, I'm not going to talk anymore about the fuel filters because you've changed that system. And that's about all I can talk about right now. It seems like that covers what I saw in the video so far. We're going to work together with the video, and I'll cover things as we go through your video, which I talked about last night. Okay. This video is just around the front of the bus. I thought I'd open the front door and we'll climb aboard the bus together. I did not think about getting this on video. I wish I had, and I wish I had found somebody to do some camera work. But what I did was I took off the crappy turn signal system that was on the steering column, and I installed an original type turn signal switch, the standard turn signal switch that came with the bus to keep it original. Also, I've done what I can to keep the instrument panel original. I did, however, add a charging system monitor. I installed, so not to look too nuts, and I didn't stick it up here. It's down here where it's easily seen. I mounted it in a way that it's angled and tilted so that in your driving position you're looking directly at this voltmeter. Hi.
Hi.
Well, guess who's here? If it isn't Glenn Thompson. Hello, Glenn.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Good. Hop on.
What are we doing here today?
The Lane brothers in Oregon are working on their father's 4103, and I'm preparing a video for them, and I'm going to be working with them. So anyway, as far as the instrument panel goes, we here at Busboys don't put stupid tachometers and stupid horns and stupid lights on our buses and stupid fancy switches all over. We keep these original. This is the only thing that intrudes in the originality of the bus, and a red charging light comes on too late for you to know your batteries are dead and you're in big, deep doo-doo.
No opinions on the news, right, Phil?
There you go. That's right. I'm very calm, very discreet about that. And it goes the same for the side panel. You'll notice that I've not changed anything. By the way, we still have the Johnson bar. If you're going to screw around with brakes, it's a good idea to install spring brakes. Now, here's another little extra thing. I've installed a cigarette lighter, what they call power points or something like that now in cars. This cigarette lighter is connected to a circuit breaker, which I installed in the panel down below here. A 10 amp circuit breaker. I don't use a fuse because the first thing you're going to do is blow the fuse, and then you're going to be screwing around with fuses. A circuit breaker is fine. Keep your wiring nice, And while I was at it, this was a good source for the 12 volts to monitor the voltmeter. Okay. Lee Smith installed an electric windshield wiper on the right side of the bus. I don't know why he did that. The left side had a wiper motor that was not original. I found a wiper motor that fit perfectly in here. So this is a pneumatic wiper motor, and as you can see, they don't park nicely because the right hand one has that full 90-degree sweep, and this is a 60-degree sweep or something like that. 1/4 of 360 is 90. So these don't look good, and I don't know what to do about it. Anyway, okay. You've seen the rest of this bus, so that's it. Okay, that's enough for now. Well, here I am back home from the 4104 project, and once again it's time to feed the dogs. So, hope you all have a good day. Hope you enjoyed that little bit of this and that. And I'll see you here and there, now and then, and we'll talk about this and that. Bye.
You look like planting rice.
Puppies.